Today we're going to take a look at some of the fascinating remnants of quartz mining operations, which remain all throughout the bushland of the Victorian Goldfields. Victoria's early gold rush mainly focused on alluvial gold, which is where gold has eroded away from its source in a quartz reef and been moved over time by water and gravity. But did you know that Victoria's first official goldfield was actually on a quartz reef? The Clunes diggings struck fame as the first official goldfield in Victoria, beginning in July 1851. The operations at the Clunes diggings were more accurately described as mining than diggings, as the gold was primarily being obtained from the quarrying of quartz veins rather than the washing of shallow alluvial material. Although the Clunes goldfield was not ideal for the early diggers of Victoria, who soon rushed to the rich alluvial fields of Ballarat, Mount Alexander and Bendigo, the Port Phillip and Colonial Gold Mining Company entered the scene in 1857 and began their lucrative operations, investing heavily in equipment and amassing a great wealth from the quartz reefs at Clunes. In this video, we're going to check out some interesting features of old quartz mining operations as they appear throughout the goldfields today, ranging from small-scale workings right up to the huge mining ventures like the Port Phillip and Colonial Gold Mining Company. We're going to begin with very shallow workings where small quartz reefs were exposed at the surface and mined by open-cut excavation, leaving an open pit or series of pits in the ground. These cuttings are often fairly narrow and run in a straight line. They will often be surrounded by fragments of quartz, and that quartz will be sharp and jagged in shape because it has only recently come off the reef and hasn't had much time to erode. If you see very rounded, water-worn quartz, such as this stuff, it has been pulled out of a deep lead, where miners extracted the gravels of an ancient riverbed from deep underground, rather than mined from a quartz reef. If you see evidence of shallow quartz workings up on a hill, you will probably find that there are alluvial workings down the bottom of the hill as well, where all the gold eroding away from that reef had settled over time. The hillside between the two can be a great place to check for gold. These quartz reef workings could often begin as open-cut excavations, and then as the miners chased the reef deeper, they began digging shafts to continue following it underground. This interesting site on a reef near Maryborough begins as a series of shallow excavations, then as we follow it along, we begin to see much deeper cuttings and shafts in the ground. Watch your step while exploring this area, as a lot of these open shafts will really sneak up on you. This stope up near the top of the reef is supported by a series of stalls, which are timber supports placed between the rock walls as a quartz vein is extracted. This place also offers a great opportunity to show you how easily a mine shaft can develop a dangerous false bottom and eventually cover over to appear as just a shallow dip in the ground. Things can get stuck partway into the shaft and create a blockage, which can then trap debris such as sticks, branches, leaves and soil until eventually the shaft is entirely covered over. Deeper mine shafts were typically rectangular in shape, but many of them have lost that shape over time. As you can see in this shaft near Smythesdale, the sides around the top have caved in, leaving a large circular hole. But deeper down we can see that this mine shaft was originally rectangular in shape. A lot of shafts you will come across in softer ground will have caved in like this, often partially filling in the shaft, or creating a false bottom in cases where obstacles such as tree branches have fallen into the shaft. When this happens, even extremely deep mine shafts can then appear to be little more than large, round, somewhat shallow holes. However secure this false bottom may seem, it will continue to decompose and deteriorate over time, becoming extremely unstable. The same thing goes for old mine shafts which were capped with things like wood or tin long ago, and many of these poorly capped shafts have been opening up at random throughout the Victorian Goldfields due to deterioration over time. Shafts in more solid or cemented ground will more often retain their rectangular shape and are more likely to remain open without caving in. Now let's take a look at the famous Eureka Reef over at Chewton, where we see the same sort of excavations as we just saw near Maryborough, but on a much larger scale. This reef was worked as a long open-cut excavation on one side and tunnelled into from the far side. This section is particularly striking in its appearance, where miners excavated huge amounts of quartz, leaving this deep, narrow chasm in the ground. Take a walk around this Eureka Reef gold mining precinct in Chewton and discover the fascinating ruins and features which remain from a century of gold mining operations. Once a busy mining village, today Eureka contains some of the oldest quartz mining relics in Victoria, including remnants of houses, stamp batteries, cyanide treatment and more. This adit on the far side of the reef is an interesting place to check out, and although it is locked with a gate for safety, you can still go several metres inside to take a look. Deeper quartz reefs were accessed and worked by shafts or adits, and you'll find the remnants of these all over the place throughout the bush. Waste rock, ore and miners could be lifted from shallower mine shafts via man-powered windlasses and horse-powered whips. But as mine shafts got deeper, the lifting machinery became more substantial. Where more lifting power was required, whims were often utilized. A whim is a device similar in concept to the windlass and whip, but more complex, capable of lifting more efficiently and from deeper shafts. A rope is wound around a vertically mounted wooden drum, with both ends passed over pulleys and then run down the shaft. A horse is harnessed to the machine and led around a circular track, winding the drum, which will lower one end of the rope carrying an empty bucket down the shaft, while raising the other carrying a full load up. Whim sites, as they are found in the bush today, typically present as circular platforms of earth where the whim once stood, usually located alongside the remains of a mine shaft and mullock-heap. Unlike the circular remains of gold puddling machines, which can be found in abundance all over the Victorian goldfields, intact whim platforms are fairly uncommon and are easily overlooked. If you're interested in seeing one of these machines for yourself, there's a complete whim located at Sovereign Hill in Ballarat, along with lots more fantastic examples of 19th century mining methods and machinery. Where even more lifting power was required, large poppet heads and winding engines were installed. A poppet head is the framework above a mine shaft which supports the wheels for the winding cables, which are run from a winding engine housed within a shed. These towering structures once dominated the skylines of the Victorian goldfields. Although they were once commonplace, today poppet heads are few and far between, unless you're in Bendigo, where there are quite a few survivors remaining today. Luckily, there are still places where you can go and have a look at them. Check out this video in the top right to see some of the surviving poppet heads throughout the Victorian goldfields. There are lots of great places throughout the region where you can go and take a look at the remains of large-scale quartz mining operations, where you will see extensive remnants of the mine's machinery foundations, battery sites, cyanide treatment plants, and more. The North British Mine in Malden, Victoria Hill in Bendigo, and the Jubilee Mine near Ballarat are three brilliant examples to go and check out. Another feature of quartz mining operations are quartz kilns, where quartz was roasted before crushing to burn off impurities and make the rock more brittle and easier to crush. There are three great examples of quartz roasting kilns located in Malden, which are all well worth checking out. These are the North British, Caledonian and Grand Junction kilns. Next, we're going to take a look at the remnants of stamp batteries, machines which were widely used for crushing ore in Victoria through the late 19th and early 20th centuries, before being replaced by more efficient crushing methods. Abandoned stamp battery sites throughout the bush in this region will typically only have remnants of their wooden foundations or loading ramps, and even these are quite rare to come across considering how many of these machines were once in operation throughout the region. I've got an informative video about the ruins and remnants of stamp batteries throughout the Victorian goldfields, which will help you to identify battery sites as they remain out in the bush today. Check it out in the top right. Well, thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in learning more about the fascinating history and features of the Victorian goldfields, subscribe to this channel and don't forget to turn on notifications.